Your special person's most shocking secret has just been exposed publicly. A video of them was leaked in which they confessed, "I am my beloved child." Something happened that your special person never believed would become public. A video surfaced, quietly at first, passed from one person to another, and within moments, the secret they had protected for so long was no longer theirs to hide. But the strangest part wasn't that they appeared in the video. It was what they said. Their voice was unsteady, their expression completely different from the face they normally show the world, and then came the words that made everyone listening suddenly go silent. "I am," the sentence continued, but what followed wasn't what people expected. "And somehow, you were connected to it." Your special person had spent so much time pretending they could control what others knew about their feelings, yet one private moment had exposed something they weren't ready to explain. Don't skip, because the reason that video existed in the first place may be even more surprising than the confession itself. The recording wasn't supposed to be public. Your special person believed they were speaking in a private setting, where their words would disappear after the conversation ended. That is why there was no polished explanation, no carefully chosen mask, and no attempt to appear unaffected. They spoke from a place they usually keep guarded. Someone asked them a simple question about why they had been acting differently lately, and for several seconds, they couldn't answer. Then they looked away and admitted there was one person they had been unable to get out of their mind. One person whose absence felt louder than anyone else's presence. But they still didn't say your name. Instead, they revealed a detail, a tiny memory involving something you once said or did. That only someone emotionally affected by you would remember so clearly. Suddenly, the people watching the leaked clip began wondering the same thing: who were they talking about? Yet your special person knew exactly who it was. Then came the part that changed the meaning of everything. Their unfinished confession, "I am," wasn't leading toward some scandalous identity or shocking accusation. It was leading toward an admission they had been terrified to say aloud. "I am still in love with someone I tried to walk away from." After those words, they went completely quiet. No dramatic speech. No explanation. Just a silence that seemed to reveal more than another 100 sentences could have. But moments later, they added something nobody expected. They said they had almost reached out to that person several times, even typing a message and deleting it before sending. Stay till the end, because the leaked confession contains one more detail. And when you hear what they said about the message they never sent, you may finally understand what your special person has been secretly preparing to do next. What happened next in that leaked video made the room feel even quieter. Your special person lowered their voice and admitted that the deleted message wasn't casual. It wasn't a simple, "How have you been?" or an attempt to reopen an old conversation without meaning. They had written something far more vulnerable. They confessed that walking away had never created the peace they expected. Instead, every attempt to move forward seemed to bring another reminder of the person they were trying so hard to forget. Then they revealed something nobody watching the video could have known. They had rewritten that message again and again, changing the words because every version felt either too honest or not honest enough. And there was one sentence they could never bring themselves to delete. They didn't read it aloud immediately. They hesitated. That hesitation mattered, because it showed that whatever those words contained still had power over them. Then someone behind the camera asked the question your special person clearly wasn't prepared to hear: if you still feel this strongly, why haven't you told them? Their expression changed instantly. For several seconds, they said nothing. Then came an answer that exposed an entirely different secret. They weren't staying silent because they had stopped caring. They were staying silent because they were afraid they had already waited too long. They wondered whether you had finally closed that door, whether someone else had entered your life, or whether hearing from them now would only reopen something you had struggled to heal from. That fear had kept their finger hovering over the send button more than once. But here is where the leaked video became even more revealing. Your special person admitted they had quietly been looking for signs that reaching out would still be welcome. A familiar place. A remembered date. Even a small coincidence could make them wonder whether they should finally stop hiding. And then they finally spoke the sentence from the unsent message. Slowly. Almost as though saying it aloud made everything dangerously real. If there is still a place for me in your heart, I don't want fear to keep deciding our story. Afterward, they looked visibly shaken, because those words weren't meant for an audience. They were meant for one person. You. But don't skip, because the story didn't end with that confession. Just before the video cut away, your special person reached for their phone and said something that changed the entire situation. They admitted that the message was still saved. They hadn't erased it. And more importantly, they had recently added one final line beneath everything they had written. Nobody in the room knew what that line said until they were asked to read it, and the moment they looked down at the screen, their reaction revealed that this wasn't merely a confession anymore. It sounded like a decision. Their hand tightened around the phone before they read that final line, and suddenly the confidence disappeared from their face. This was the sentence they had been protecting most carefully. After everything already exposed in the video, you might think there was nothing left to hide, but there was. Your special person took a slow breath and finally read the words they had added beneath the unsent message: if I reach out this time, I'm not disappearing again. That changed everything. This wasn't someone casually remembering the past. It wasn't loneliness speaking for one emotional night. They were admitting that if they opened the door again, they wanted to do it differently. No mixed signals. No sudden distance. No pretending their feelings weren't real. But immediately after reading those words, they revealed why they still hadn't pressed send, and the reason was connected to something they believed about you. Your special person had apparently heard that you were changing. Becoming quieter about certain things. Protecting your energy more carefully. No longer waiting around for people who couldn't decide what they wanted. Whether every detail they heard was accurate didn't matter as much as what it triggered inside them. For the first time, they seriously considered that while they were wrestling with fear, you might be learning how to live without them. That realization hit harder than they expected. Someone in the room asked, "So what happens if they don't want you anymore?" Your special person looked down, and their answer came without hesitation: "Then I'll respect that. But I can't keep pretending they meant nothing to me." Those words revealed something important. They weren't only afraid of rejection. They were afraid of never telling you the truth and carrying that unanswered question forever. And then another person asked whether you even knew how deeply they had been affected. That was when your special person revealed the next secret, and this one had never appeared in any message. They admitted there was a specific moment between you that they replayed whenever they considered reaching out. To everyone else, it would have looked ordinary. But to them, it became the moment they realized their feelings had crossed a line they could no longer easily reverse. Their voice softened as they described remembering your expression, your words, and the strange feeling that came afterward. The feeling that they had just experienced something they might spend years trying to find again. Then they stopped themselves before revealing exactly what happened that day. Someone behind the camera noticed and pushed harder. What did they do that affected you that much? Your special person looked directly toward the camera for the first time. Their eyes changed. And what they said next suggested that the most shocking part of this leaked confession wasn't how much they still felt for you. It was what they believed happened between you before either of you fully understood it. For a moment, your special person refused to answer, as though describing that memory would make it impossible to hide behind uncertainty ever again. Then they finally explained what had happened. There had been one conversation between you when they were carrying more pressure than you realized. They hadn't told you everything, and you hadn't demanded an explanation. Instead, you noticed something was wrong beneath the surface. You said a few simple words that made them feel understood without having to defend themselves. That was the moment they couldn't forget. In the leaked video, they admitted, they saw through me when everyone else believed I was fine. Suddenly, their confession became much deeper than missing someone. You had reached a part of them they normally kept protected. And afterward, instead of moving closer, they became afraid of how much that connection mattered. That fear explained the distance nobody else could understand. Your special person revealed that after realizing how deeply you affected them, they began pulling back, not because their feelings disappeared, but because those feelings were becoming impossible to control. They worried that if they let you get any closer, you would eventually see every insecurity they had carefully hidden. So they convinced themselves that distance would make everything easier. It didn't. The silence only made your presence stronger in their mind. They started noticing reminders of you in ordinary moments, a familiar phrase, a place connected to a memory, a conversation that sounded strangely like one you'd once shared. And then came another revelation. They admitted that on more than one occasion, they had opened your contact just to stare at your name. No message. No call. Just that quiet battle between reaching toward you and protecting themselves from what might happen afterward. But someone watching the recording noticed a contradiction and challenged them immediately. If you're that afraid, why are you thinking about contacting them now? Your special person didn't answer quickly. Instead, they looked at the phone again, almost as though the real answer was sitting somewhere on that screen. Then they said something unexpected. Because something happened recently that made me realize silence could cost me more than rejection. The atmosphere shifted. Until that moment, everyone assumed the leaked confession was simply about unresolved feelings. Now there was a new mystery. Something recent had pushed your special person toward a decision. Something had made waiting suddenly feel dangerous. Stay till the end, because when they were asked what happened, they mentioned a piece of information about you that had reached them unexpectedly, and whatever they heard was powerful enough to make them begin writing a second message, one they apparently had no intention of deleting. The information that reached them was surprisingly simple, but it struck exactly where their fear had been hiding. Someone had casually mentioned that you seemed different lately. Not bitter, not waiting, just genuinely ready to move forward with your life. Your special person tried to act unaffected when they heard it, but in the leaked video they admitted that the words followed them for the rest of the day. For the first time, they pictured a future where you weren't emotionally standing in the same place they had left you. A future where your attention belonged somewhere else, where someone braver could offer you the consistency they had been too frightened to give. And that possibility forced an uncomfortable realization: they had been treating your connection as though time would preserve it indefinitely. Suddenly, they understood that silence wasn't keeping anything safe. Silence was making the decision for them. That night, they opened their phone again, but this time, they didn't return to the old unsent confession. They started a completely new message. The person behind the camera asked what was different about this one, and your special person gave an answer nobody expected: "I'm not asking them to wait for me." Those words changed the entire tone. They said they finally understood that reaching out couldn't be about demanding another chance or expecting you to erase whatever happened before. Instead, they wanted to take responsibility for what their silence may have communicated. They wanted you to know that the distance wasn't proof that you meant too little. In reality, you had meant enough to frighten them. But then came the most revealing detail. They admitted the second message contained something they had never told anyone, not even the people closest to them. It was a decision they had quietly made about what they would do if you answered. Someone immediately asked, "What decision?" Your special person smiled nervously and looked away, almost regretting that they had already said too much. Then the leaked recording captured something nobody could have planned. Their phone suddenly vibrated in their hand. Your special person froze. Everyone in the room noticed. Someone laughed and asked whether it was you, but they didn't answer. They simply stared at the screen, and whatever they saw completely changed their expression. The nervous smile disappeared. Their eyes widened, then softened, as though something they had secretly hoped for had just appeared at the exact wrong, or perhaps exact right, moment. "That's strange," they whispered. The person filming immediately asked what had happened, but your special person turned the screen away from the camera. Don't skip what comes next, because they eventually revealed that the notification was connected to you in a way they couldn't easily explain. And after seeing it, they opened that second message again, placed their thumb over the send button, and said 7 quiet words that made everyone realize the waiting might finally be over: "Maybe this is the sign I needed." But your special person still didn't press send. Their thumb remained frozen above the screen while everyone around them waited, and then they admitted why that notification had shaken them so deeply. It wasn't a direct message from you. It was something connected to a memory the two of you shared, a reminder appearing at the exact moment they were discussing whether they had waited too long. They knew coincidence was possible, yet emotionally, the timing was impossible for them to ignore. "Every time I decide to leave this alone," they whispered, "something brings me back to them." Then they locked the phone and placed it face down, almost trying to escape the decision for another few seconds. But someone behind the camera asked the question they had been avoiding all night: "What exactly are you hoping happens if they answer?" Your special person looked up, and their response exposed the real purpose behind that second message. They weren't expecting everything between you to magically return to the way it once was. In fact, they said that was the last thing they wanted. If you answered, they wanted one honest conversation. No pretending. No hiding behind vague words. They wanted to tell you what happened inside them when they pulled away, why fear became silence, and why that silence eventually became harder to break with every passing day. Then came a detail nobody in the room expected. Your special person admitted they had already imagined the conversation many times, including the possibility that you might say you had moved on. Their voice became quieter as they said, "If that's their truth, I'll accept it. I just need them to finally know mine." That sentence made it clear that this was no longer about controlling the outcome. Something inside them had shifted. They were preparing to risk hearing an answer they might not like because remaining unknown to you had become even more painful. Then the person filming asked to hear the second message, and this time your special person didn't immediately refuse. They unlocked the phone, opened the draft, and began reading, but stopped after the first sentence. "I should have told you this before I disappeared." Their face changed instantly. There was more beneath those words, something heavier than the confession everyone had already heard. Stay till the end, because what followed wasn't another declaration of love. Your special person revealed that there had been a specific reason they disappeared when they did, and they had never told you because they believed silence would protect you from becoming involved. Now they realized that decision may have caused exactly the pain they were trying to prevent. They stared at the unfinished message and finally said, if they knew what was really happening then, they would understand everything differently. And just before the video shifted away, they began revealing what had actually happened during those missing days. Those missing days had carried a truth your special person never knew how to explain. In the leaked video, they admitted that something in their personal life had suddenly become overwhelming, leaving them emotionally scattered and unsure of what they could promise anyone. They were afraid that bringing you closer while everything felt unstable would eventually hurt you, so they made a decision without giving you any voice in it. They withdrew. At the time, they convinced themselves it was the responsible choice. But as they spoke about it now, you could hear the regret. "I thought leaving quietly would cause less damage," they confessed. "I was wrong." That sentence changed the entire meaning of their disappearance. They hadn't gone silent because you were forgotten. They had gone silent while thinking about you far more than you ever knew. And there was one particular night during that period when they came closer to contacting you than anyone had realized. They described sitting alone with your conversation open on their phone, reading old messages and remembering how easy honesty had once felt with you. They typed your name. Deleted it. Typed a sentence. Deleted that too. Then they almost called. Their finger hovered over the screen, but fear won again. What stopped them wasn't a lack of feeling, it was the thought that you might hear the uncertainty in their voice and realize they couldn't yet give you the stability they believed you deserved. But here's what haunted them afterward: they never gave you the truth, so you were left to create your own explanation for their silence. Maybe you thought they stopped caring. Maybe you thought someone else mattered more. Maybe you eventually decided their absence was the only answer you were ever going to receive. In the leaked recording, your special person finally admitted, "That's the part one can't forgive myself for. I let them believe something that wasn't true. Then someone asked the question that brought everything back to the present, so are you sending the message tonight? Your special person looked down at the screen again. This time, T.